Well, we're live here now, and thanks for joining us today. First of all, it's a great honor to have you all here. We have speakers from the UK, from Portugal, from Italy, and from Greece, and of course, last but not least, from Brazil, my good friend and international director for academic affairs, Jair Jevar, is joining here us today. And we're going to talk about mediation in Europe and the status of mediation, of course, some cultural peculiarities. How is mediation currently in your countries? And of course, we're going to speak. Henry Minton from the UK is going to start speaking about the universals. And then, of course, the other speakers are going to speak about the peculiarities in their own countries. So I'm going to introduce you now. And once again, on behalf of our president, the CBMA's president, Gustavo Schmitz, thanks for joining us today. And this event is sponsored, is hosted by CBMA, the Brazilian Center for Mediation and Arbitration, and also it's co-hosted by MGG, the Mediators Global Group, which we all make part of it. So thanks for joining us today, and I hope MGG grows and get more components as we go and we do our events here. So let me introduce you guys. First, of course, the ladies. Όλγα Τσιπτσέ from Greece. She's a lawyer at the Supreme Court of Greece with organizational and communication skills, responsibility, dedication, and fond of lifelong learning. Thanks for joining us today, Olga. Ursula Kaiser, Portugal. Do I say Kaiser? Ursula? Casa. Yeah, it's Portuguese, sorry. It's German, actually. She holds an European Master in Mediation since 2000. In her work, she focused on community and complex planning mediation, public dialogue, consensus building, and training. Henry Minto from the UK. He's a mediator accredited by the Chartered Institute of Arbitrators and a solicitor. Giovanni Matteucci from Italy. He's an Italian commercial mediator, a trainer certified by the Italian Ministry of Justice. And of course, I'm just saying just a small bit, tiny part of your resumes, because you have a lot of experience in mediation and you've been doing it for a long time. So that's why you are here today, and that's why I'm going to learn a lot. We all going to learn a lot from you today. And
please, we have to learn everybody from the others.
So last but not least, Jair Jevar, he's CBMA's International Director for Academic Affairs, Arbitrator, Mediator, Lawyer, Professor, and Strauss Institute Ambassador. And last and least, myself, I'm the Vice President for Academic Affairs of the CBMA. So thanks a lot for joining us today. Jair, please, as you are a CBMA's representative here today, please, any remarks just for us to begin with Henry?
Well, before giving the stage to Henry, I just would like to say that this is a great opportunity for our audience to learn from the best. We are talking with people very, very qualified, with lots of experience, and for sure they will bring a lot of light over this subject, which is mediation. Sometimes it seems so simple, but it's so complex in its many different aspects and so on and so forth. So without much ado, I would just ask Henry to take the stage and give us some highlights on some universal aspects of this wonderful profession, which is mediation, right? And how he's doing his job in England mainly, but United Kingdom and a huge part of Europe. So, Henry, please enlighten us with your knowledge.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Very good morning. I think it is in Brazil to everybody. It's midday here. I'm missing lunch, especially for this, so that's something I'm doing, but I'm absolutely honored to have been invited to join this panel of experts in their field. I've been asked to speak to the topic of mediation in Europe, cultural peculiarities. It's a very broad and wide-ranging subject, and I've been given 15 minutes to cover it. So it's a real challenge, but never mind. Let me just quickly introduce myself. I'm a civil and commercial mediator with over 10 years of experience covering all sorts of disputes, from property to corporate, commercial to inheritance, professional negligence to education. You will have noted that I'm described as coming from the United Kingdom. I'm a solicitor with over 40 years of experience, qualified to practice in England and Wales, which is part of the United Kingdom, but not Scotland, which is also part of the United Kingdom, even though I'm actually Scottish by birth. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, but does not form part of what other people describe as Great Britain. So you can see that we have some quite interesting basic structural issues in the United Kingdom. Our country, the United Kingdom, has 3 different legal systems which have evolved over the centuries and has a rich cultural diversity. Indeed, it is totally and utterly multicultural, which makes it culturally peculiar, if not a unique in the world. Are you beginning to understand the dilemmas we face on our small island? The cultural peculiarities are so wide-ranging that it is impossible to cover in this short webinar. In fact, it is impossible to have regard to all of them in a mediated environment, where I now specialize. So, mediation in the UK, where is it? There's an expression in English which is, it is alive and kicking, which means that it is absolutely at the forefront of people's minds. It's being used more and more on the basis that it saves time and expense and can rebuild broken relationships. The judges and lawyers are slowly beginning to embrace the notion, and the general awareness is improving. Judges are even ordering that mediation should be tried before going to court. I don't want to get into the distinction between voluntary and compulsory mediation at this stage. I don't have the time in this short seminar, but that's always a big issue. So what I want to cover today is how to address cultural peculiarities in mediation. The answer is that I recognize the concept, but actually do not look at peculiarities when I'm mediating, but rather the universals in human behavior. And it works. My academic influence is Noam Chomsky. I studied linguistics at university before becoming a lawyer, and Noam propounded that there is a universality of language in humans, coupled with a vast array of universals in human behavior: love, hate, hunger, thirst, fears, myths, legend, rules, food, family, transport, shelter, security, happiness, education, politics, technology, values, beliefs, rituals. I could go on, but there are an enormous number of universalities that one can find in human behavior. And even without going outside central London, I can mediate cross-border, cross-culture, cross-religion, and the like. We have a truly international community. I've mediated between Arabs and Jews, Gujaratis and Sikhs, Scots and English, that's the most difficult, members of different UK Protestant churches, to name just a few. And the common approach in all of these mediations is as follows: what are your concerns? What are your fears? What are your interests? What are your needs? Invariably, the answer answers to those questions, independent of cultural background, are, for example, I want to close this dispute. I want to concentrate on something else. I want to do business with my former friend. I want a fair outcome. I didn't mean what I said in that meeting. I really just want an apology. I want to live in peace. It's not just about the money. So my fundamental thesis is that at a basic level, all the above apply in all cultures, and the skill of the mediator is to facilitate dissection of these issues and reduce them to their bare essentials. To adapt a famous advertisement, mediation reaches the parts which other forms of dispute resolution or beer cannot reach. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Henry, for enlightening us. And I'm really fond of the UK because, as you said, you are a small island, but with so many different cultures. The British and the English, the Scots and the Welsh and the Irish, of course, let's not forget. So yeah, so it's so many different cultures in such a small place. And of course, if you maximize that to the world, we can even begin to speak about it, to talk about it. So thank you for your lecture. And I'm pretty sure it's just the first of so many discussions to come, because it's such an interesting topic to discuss. So now, Olga, are you there? So now from Greece, please, Olga, the stage is all yours.
Thank you very, very much. I'm very grateful for the chance to be among such esteemed colleagues and talking about my first love. And as first loves never die, but always hurt too much. But I would like first to present myself in order to know everyone who is talking. I would like to inform the unique audience that I am an accredited mediator and an arbitrator of Ministry of Justice. I'm an LLM lawyer since February 2003, and I have just closed my 18 years of this unique field of sciences. Can I say it, science? So nothing is easy in Greece, and of course everyone knows that here in my country. Also, mediation is not easy. Mediation first appeared in Greece in 2010, when Greece was obliged as the last country to ratify European direction through Law 3898 of 2010, which is Greece was finally harmonized with the European Directive of 2008-52 European Commission. Almost 10 years from 2010 until 2018, mediation was known only to almost 2,000 accredited mediators who were trained by institutions that were the 5 bar associations that we have here in Greece and had established these institutes of mediation. Of course, 8 years, 2,000 mediators and almost 60 mediations are the numbers that we could count in Greece. Something was really, really wrong. So why mediators are only trained and certified and cannot practice their skills? The problem was shown in 2018 when a new mediation law amended the above first one. The Greek law 4512 of the year 2018 was a Rubicon. What was the innovative part of this new law? For the first time, mediation was introduced as a mandatory stage. for specific procedures, such as family cases, torts, medical errors, car accidents, financial disputes, etc. It was the Article 182 that said that mediation from now on would be mandatory. This states should be done before court procedures, or else court procedures would be invalidated if we didn't do this first session. What happened after issuing that law? Which were the reactions and from who? The law was suspended twice. First suspension was up to December 2019, before almost 2 years. And the second one was up to November 2019, because of the reactions of both lawyers and judges in Greece. It was a declaration which was admitted by the Supreme Court of Greece that such mandatory procedure was controversial to the Constitution of Greece. We cannot have mediation and mandatory. What happened next? Next, the law that was suspended two times, as I said, was never implemented and was replaced by the new one, the third mediation law, that was 4,640, 2019, which is finally in force since 15th of January for family cases and since 1st of July for torts. No other disputes are included for such a mandatory first session. Due to that law, mediator has to be accredited by Ministry of Justice. That means that she or he must participate in a 80 hours compulsory course, having passed exams of trained entity that is trained, and also having passed oral and written exams of the Ministry of Justice. No legal background is necessary, but the candidates shall retain a degree of higher education. After achieving all this, mediators take a number of registry and are listed to mediators catalog of Ministry of Justice, and of course can be selected for any civil and commercial mediation, not only this mandatory two cases, family and torts. Mediators shall attend to lifelong mediation learning programs every 3 years and earning CPDs, credits for their trainings. There are two kinds of mediation here in Greece. The voluntary mediation for any civil and commercial case, apart from those two that I mentioned. And of course, the mandatory first session of mediation, which consists in fact an attempt the case to be solved before going to the courts. The attempt is mandatory only for two kinds of disputes, as I said before, because otherwise that will be non-constitutional here in Greece. I could talk hours for this useless first mediation section that I really don't be fond of, because it really not giving mediators the prestige that they have, because it's really complicated. All this section, the first mandatory section, is very complicated. A mediator has to call both parties to try to take their consent in order to be the mediator for this first session, and all this for nothing. Indeed, that's not mediation here in Greece, and really some amendments shall be done, and we are moving into this direction, because we don't like the way that mediation is evolved. So I don't have many time as I can think. Did I hear something? No?
You have all the time in the world, Olga. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Just proceed.
Thank you very much. So family cases, apart from those of marital disputes that cannot be mediated here in Greece, that cannot be mediated are divorce, recognition of existence or non-existence of marriage, parent-child relationships. All these are not mediatable here in Greece. And of course, one that is mandatory is also the claims and the disputes with price over 30,000 euros. And finally, disputes that are oriented from contracts where there is a written mediation clause agreement and a valid mediation clause. The mediation procedure is described in Articles 5 to 7 of the new law that I mentioned to you of 2019. Once again, mediation is relied upon a qualified mediator. On her or on him, the institution is dependent. Her and his role, skills, abilities, personality can be the subject of a separate study. And these points are very crucial for the evolution of mediation and the mediation procedures. There is no mediation if there is no mediator, but also there is no successful mediation if there is no capable mediator. Through her or his skills, mediation techniques on which it is initially trained, but also continuously retrained and re-examined, is called upon to communicate effectively with the parties who have dispute. Mediator does not guide the parties in Greece, does not propose solutions, at least he and she is not asked from the parties to do so. He and she listens to the parties and observes them, shows sympathy, sorry, not empathy is not a good word, helps them to realize the real problem, which is often overshadowed by various factors, such as selfishness and other issues that are hidden. Mediator helps parties to see real interest and cuts them from their positions, as we have heard before from Henry. The key point for a qualified mediator is education and experience, but also concentration, dedication, communication, and neutrality, objectivity, and all these principles that mediation has. I could really speak a lot of mediation, but I don't want to waste time. So if you want me to to stop here, I will, because I have many things to say, many more things to say.
Just one quick question, if I may. Do you think there's a different way that the Greeks mediate? As a mediator, I'm not talking about the parties. That is different than the other parts, the countries that you know in Europe?
Yes, not a difference. We're not deciding. We are not proposing. We just facilitate the parties to find their own solutions and to show them what is hidden besides their interest or their needs. I want when I take part to a mediation, I barely speak, only ask and hear, and I make big pauses that I don't speak. Just keep checking with eye contact and show how they react. It's really very crucial for them to find out their way, but they cannot do that alone, because they are coming to us or go to courts. They cannot find the solutions alone. So they just need a coaching, but a coaching that don't feel that they are coached. They have to feel that they are moving forward themselves. They decide, they choose the right direction for themselves, and when these directions meet to a point, this is the agreement, and then everything will be safe and easy afterwards. The relationships will overcome, will be fixed, and all these things will really have a reunion, and the relationship will go on, and nothing will stop them afterwards. And if they stop, here we are again to take our parts and our roles.
Okay. thanks very much, Olga, for your lecture. And Greece was, some authors said that Socrates was the first big negotiator in history. Others also said that Jesus Christ was some kind of a negotiator. So in some way, Greece was the place where everything started, at least in the philosophical way of thinking. So thanks a lot, Olga, for your lecture. And now I have my sister from Portugal. I'm also Portuguese. So, Úrsula, muito obrigado por estar aqui hoje no nosso webinar. I'm going to speak this briefly in Portuguese. And the stage is all yours. O palco é todo seu. Fique à vontade.
Muito obrigada. Thank you for inviting me. This is a great honor. As Daniel said already, I'm originally German, but I lived for 30 years in Portugal, and I'm doing mediation for 20 years full-time, between mediation and facilitation of meetings. As you heard in the beginning, I'm doing planning processes also. I'll try to give you a small insight in the Portuguese mediation situation. I hope you can see that all. So in Portugal, we have, let me see whether this works. Yeah, we have a law which is based on the European regulation. It's from 2013, and it establishes the general principles applicable to all mediation in Portugal. So regardless of the entity carrying out the mediation, be it public or private, regardless of the matter in question, this law claims to be valid for all mediations, and it establishes the principles like voluntarity, confidentiality, autonomy, all these type of things. It regulates specifically the two systems of mediation we have. We have a public system in Portugal, which is tutored by the Ministry of Justice. It's called Julgado de Paz, like peace court thing. And there are 4 different types. One is the Julgado de Paz, which is first instance conflicts until 15,000 euro value. We have a public system of family mediation. This is covered here by the Julgado de Paz sign. We have a workplace mediation system publicly and a victim offender mediation system. The Julgado de Paz works quite well, but has a lot of problems because mediation is voluntary, obviously, and somebody brings the process. So one part of the conflict brings the process, and the other is and this part decides whether he opts for mediation or opts against mediation, and the other part is invited. And if the other part does not come to the date, so no mediation happens, which leads to the fact that lots of people who bring the process do not opt for mediation because they fear that they lose a day when the other part does not come. So it's complex, but anyway, it's there. The mediation, the workplace victim offender mediation does not work so well, not so many cases. The family mediation works quite well. Lots of colleagues are doing family mediation also in the public system. The problem is it's paid by case. So in the Julgado de Paz system, you get 110 euros for agreement if the parties do an agreement, and 90 euros if the parties do not come to an agreement, which is horrible because the success is not really the agreement, but the talking. In the family mediation, you get 122 euros for the whole case. So if it's like 1 session or 8 sessions, you do not get more. This is a huge conversation, but since 2002, it's like this, and we mediators do not have any lobby to change it. That's the public system. Obviously, there is private mediation also. We have an accreditation by the Ministry of Justice. There is a list which is tutored by the Ministry of Justice. And if you have the convenient training, sufficient hours, sufficient experience, you can put yourself, or you can ask for being put on this list, which is an accreditation list, but it's alphabetical and it doesn't say the field where the mediator intervenes. So we have something like 500 registered mediators. My name is Ursula Casa. I'm number 460 something, and it does not say in which fields I intervene. So this list is not really useful. As you see here, mediations take place online and presential. Now with the COVID thing, more online, obviously, and public system, I forgot to say that, is opting for online mediations also. I said in the beginning, the mediation law is valid for all mediations in Portugal. It says explicitly like this, but obviously there are fields of mediation where the law is not applicable, and that's one of our books with some colleagues, jurists, which examines the law in the light of the principles for environmental mediation, which is my special field. And we find that confidentiality, voluntarity, autonomy, representativity, all these things in a multi-partner complex mediation have to be handled differently, like family mediation, for example, or personal mediation. So there's a huge difference, which is complicated because we, for example, administrative mediators and environmental mediators and all the mediators who work with the representatives are not covered by the law. And yeah, we try to solve this, but this is obviously a long way. Next focus would be on training the mediators who are listed in the public systems, or the ones who are certified private mediators must be qualified with a course. This was, the law was, the course must be recognized by the Ministry of Justice until 2013. And since 2013, it's the training entity that is certified by the Ministry of Justice, which I feel is a bit complicated because the Ministry of Justice does not look so closely to the content of the mediation training as before, I guess. So there is quite a number of different recognized courses in many fields. We have, for example, insolvency, bankruptcy mediation, and family mediation, and penal mediation, and general mediation, and everything. We have many certified training entities with very different scopes. For being an accredited mediator, you have to have 120 hours training, but there are entities who do a 40 hours commercial mediation training, like CEDAR does in Great Britain, for example. And then you are a mediator, not certified by the Ministry of Justice. But so there is a huge variety. Let's say one of the problems I see specifically is that there are very few courses where trainees might fail because all the courses are paid and the entities are not so interested in having trainees failing, which is at least, I think this is discussable. But there are courses also with following the IMI criteria, for example, where trainees may fail, and this gives huge discussions all the time and complaints to the Ministry of Justice. So another complex discussion point. The result is we have very different mediators in Portugal, lots. I think through my trainings for different entities past, perhaps, I don't know, 2,000 or so, we should have 4,000 around trained mediators, but obviously not all of them, or a few of them really do mediation. So actors in the field in Portugal is the Ministry of Justice, as I said already, which is the tutor of an entity below, which is called Direção Geral da Política de Justiça, which is a part of the Ministry of Justice, competent for alternative dispute resolution. That's for the legal statal part. Then we have a Federação Nacional de Mediação de Conflitos, a federation of mediation associations and enterprises on the one hand, and personal people or personal mediators who can be federated personally. Not so many, 70 or 80 personal mediators are members of the federation, I guess, personally, which is a huge problem because there is no lobby for mediation. We have some few, I guess, independent full-time mediators in Portugal. We have some not so much but in growing, let's say, contracted mediators and enterprises. And we have a huge number of law or psycho or whatever professionals who did a mediation training and who act as part-time mediators, who continue to be lawyers and sometimes mediate, or continue to be psychologists and sometimes mediate, and often it's not really separated. So for the user, for the citizen who looks for mediation, I think it's a sort of confusing market, which leads me to the market. The market for mediation is difficult, as it is probably in all your countries. Mediator is not a protected professional designation in Portugal. Mediator is very often understood by real estate mediator because it's the same word, mediador. So you always have to say mediador de conflitos, conflict mediator, and then it needs a huge explication what this is. We have the mediation paradoxon at work, like probably in your countries, also in Germany at least, it's the same, which is everybody who, or lots of people who passed through a mediation like it very much and recommend it, but the people who did not pass are very critical. So it's not spreading, because you only understand what mediation is and the potential when you pass through a mediation. So then there is a lack of information and promotion. Sometimes the Ministry of Justice does some campaigns for the public system, but the federation has not really power because it's so few associates, which makes few money, which makes all voluntary work, which makes it difficult. And the mediators are not unified in Portugal. That's the result, and that is very critical because, as I said before, there is not much of a lobby, neither for mediation, nor for mediators, nor for this intervention. And the lawyers and the Bar Association are very, very critical and often say this is a privatization of justice and we do not support it. And so it's complicated. Some quick remarks on culture. The market is difficult not only, but also because of cultural peculiarities. I say that perhaps from a perspective half German, half Portuguese. Conflict escalation is already high when people consider external intervention. That's one of the huge problems, because when people notice in Portugal, often, I guess it's in Germany not so different, when people recognize that they cannot solve their conflict on their own, they are already in a so escalated situation that they want their right, and then they want to go to court, and then they want to win. And this is complicated, as we all know, because mediation should start earlier. Communicative cultures like the Portuguese one hesitate to include and open to externals. That's another, let's say, cultural peculiarity, I guess. Personal and professional relationships are very mixed in Portugal, and it's kept somehow confidential within the families, which within the enterprise cultures, and so to contract somebody external and say, we here have a conflict and we cannot do it on our own, please offer us an arena for communication, is complicated. As I said, there's a weak separation between professional and personal relationships, which contributes this. Portugal is a high context culture, which means there's a lot of message in the non-verbal. So this leads to a specific type of conflict escalation. And again, we end up there where we find ourselves in a situation where conflict escalation is high when people think of external resolution. And information is power in at least in many relationships and enterprises and personal relationships. Talking might be seen as weakness, especially if you are already involved in a conflict. That's why we try to convince enterprises, for example, to do a mediation clause in their contract. So everybody who makes a contract, even a civil contract, real estate buy or whatever, should have a mediation clause to avoid this, to avoid that people get, because in the beginning when they do the contract, everybody is fine and they will assign everything. But when conflict escalates, then it gets very complicated to make people talk, because then they think it's seen as weak by the other. So that would be the insight. If you have questions, here I am.
Muito obrigado, Ursula. Thanks a lot, Duncan. and Portugal is really, in some ways, really similar to Brazil. I've been writing about arbitration between Brazil and Portugal, and I've recently written a paper on administrative arbitration, and we have some similarities. Of course, the law tradition in Brazil comes from Portugal, so in some ways you are up in front of us, and for example, we're discussing tax arbitration, and you already have tax arbitration there in Portugal. And mediation, we are, I think, so in the same step. And what I found it interesting that you told the exact number of mediators in Portugal. And if you ask me, and I don't know if Shai can answer that, but I have no idea how many mediators we have in Brazil. And of course, the ones that train for the judicial mediation, I think we can get that number in the judiciary, but not the non-judiciary, the companies mediation. I think I can't. It's hard to say to state a number of mediators in Brazil.
Well, I cannot say an exact number for all the mediators, yeah, but the ones on the list, yes, because
yeah, of course. No, that's in. But you are a small country.
Yeah.
You have, I think, 10 million inhabitants. The population is 10 million. Brazil is 210 million, 220 million. So we have a lot more inhabitants, and our regions are so much different. And I say we need to discuss multicultural mediation, cross-cultural mediation. And I think in some countries you have to discuss cross-regional mediation, because we're so different depending on the region. In Italy, for example, the regions are completely different. Like Brazil, the south is completely different from the north, and not so much in Portugal, if I'm not mistaken.
Don't underestimate.
Yeah, I know. But I've been there. I can't, but it's smaller. But I think Italy, Italy. It's a kind of, and of course the UK, I can even say it's so much different. But thank you, Ursula. Of course, we have so many discussions after this one. And Giovanni, now Italy, the stage is yours. And I'll share my screen here to share your PPT. So whenever you're ready.
Okay. Many thanks for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here, just with so many distinguished fellow colleagues from different countries and from different cultures. As Jay told at the beginning of this meeting, mediation is simple and complex at the same time. And so it fits in very different ways in all different situations. Well, mediation in Italy, status and cultural peculiarities, 2021. Second page, please. Civil mediation in Italy can be voluntary, provided by contract, compulsory, and delegated by judge. The first two are negligible up to now. Since 2010, mediation has been mandatory condition for proceeding in matters that account for about 9% of court civil proceedings, with a first informative meeting where parties can opt out from the mediation proceeding. The parties must be assisted by a lawyer, but too often they are represented by him, so mediation loses much of its effectiveness. Mandatory mediation has been strongly opposed by lawyers. It's been considered the child of lesser God by most judges. It's very little known by the public. Nevertheless, according to the European Parliament, Italy uses mediation at a rate 6 times higher than the rest of Europe. Other peculiarities exclusive to Italy: civil mediation statistics related to the whole country. Therefore, it's possible monitoring of developments. studies on predictability of dispute resolution through mediation, run by University and Course of Florence and Bari. Italy has an estimated population of 60 million people. There are 9,400 judges and 242,000 lawyers. In the city of Rome, there are as many lawyers as there are in all France. In 2019, there were almost 3 million new proceedings filed in civil courts, 147,000 civil mediation proceedings, and 21,000 mediated settlement agreements. You see, there is a big difference, but we started only 10 years ago. In the 2011-2019 period, there's been a decrease in civil court litigation because of the economic crisis, a strong increase in mediation proceedings, and a strong increase in mediation settlement agreements. Nevertheless, there is a wide room for the growth. The Italian state was founded in 1861. In the first Civil Procedure Code, 1865, the heading of the 7 introductory articles was conciliation. According to a law issued in the same year, police officers must first of all reconcile conflicts among private citizens. In 1880, the Justice of Peace issued 70% of all judgments delivered in Italy. According to law number 261 in 1892, the judge, in order to reach a conciliation, could call for the single party in a private hearing. I underline a judge who could make just an anti-lithium caucus. Before the First World War, the Italian bankruptcy law in 1903 also provided for negotiation agreements on the settlements of the debtor crisis under the control of the judge, who, in small claims, could also act as a mediator. The totalitarian regime carried out during the fascist period, 1922-1943, disliked conflict resolutions reached by private citizens. They must be managed by a state body, the judges, through sentences. Since the 30s of last century, in Italy, mediation gradually lost its importance, and it was no longer taught in university for over 70 years. Therefore, mediation was, and still is, part of the Italian legal tradition, but it was forgotten. In 2009, there were almost 6 million pending civil litigation cases in the overall judicial system, the highest number ever reached. In 2010, compulsory civil and commercial mediation took off. It came into force in 2011. It was revoked in October 2012, and reintroduced in September 2013 with some innovations. Among others, compulsory lawyers' assistance to the parties, the first information meeting free of charge, and the possibility for the parties to opt out of the proceeding. Nevertheless, there was a furious opposition by lawyers and a benign neglect by judges. In 2010, more than 200,000 disputes were expected to be transferred from courts to mediation, 1 million in 5 years. There was a rush to mediation. As a result, in 2012, there were 968 mediation providers, and when no one knows the exact number, maybe approximately 40,000 mediators, mainly lawyers. Most likely, there were more mediators than mediations, and the worst of all, poor training. But little by little, situation is improving. Lawyers and judges began to take an interest in mediation. In 2019, 21,000 mediation agreements were reached, almost the highest number than ever in Italy. And if all parties were present in the proceeding and decide to go beyond the first information meeting, the success rate raised to 46%. Is mediation part of the Italian culture? Not yet. After the fall of the Roman Empire, the Italian territory was divided into many states and small political entities for almost 1,500 years. Conflicts and rivalries has been countless. Only 150 years ago, the unitary state was built through wars. The social and cultural influence of the Catholic Church has been, and still is, of the utmost importance. But its doctrine is based on forgiveness, not mediation. In Italy, there's been neither the industrial, neither the bourgeois revolution, but only the self-proclaimed fascist revolution, which really was the maintenance of the status quo. Therefore, Italians do like innovations too much. In the Luchino Visconti 1963 classic movie, The Leopard, there is an enlightening phrase, everything must change so that nothing changes. In The Code of the Italian Life by Giuseppe Prezzolini, 1921, it's not absolutely true that in Italy there is no justice. It's, however, true that it's not necessary to ask the judge, but rather the deputy, the minister, the journalist, the influential lawyer for justice. The thing can be found to address a wrong. Another thing, in Italy, judicial proceedings last too many years. So, in the case of a dispute, many people are aware of a proverb, there is always time to pay and to die. Many thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much, Giovanni. You made an incredible historical background of the Italian mediation, and as you once told me, you have an economist background, so you use the numbers in your favor, and that's how, you know, I think it makes a lot of sense to think about ADR by the numbers. The numbers actually say how it's being applied by a country. So that was a very...
It is just an help to understand the situation was getting on.
Yeah, and how do you think nowadays is mediation in Italy? Do you think it's growing up, or arbitration is bigger than mediation currently, or
not at all? Not at all. Everything is based on the judicial system, judicial proceedings. But because of the pandemic, because of the new government, we are just on the razor edge. I think that many things can change. It may be, not very confident, but it may be, because now we are really facing very big problems. And we really need to be courageous and to handle our life with our hands. So things can change. But I always remember, little by little.
And do you think virtual mediation, ODR, increased a lot during the pandemic? Do you think it's a tendency?
ODR was used very, very little before the pandemic. Now it improved, it just increased. We now just accustomed to use ODR. And now we have really to understand how to use it and to be much more accustomed to this new tool. It's not easy because for us Italian, the face-to-face, the meetings, to be all together is extremely important also from a social point of view. And just to have all these relations through a PC is something against our deep culture. But a new era started. And so now we have to manage with it.
Yeah, I think Italians, we're Latins here. Giovanni. Brazilians and Italians are so much alike.
The sunshine is very important, because where there is sunshine, you always go walk on the street, meet people and so on. When it's rainy or when it's dark, you don't like to be out of your house, you know, and there's a very important influence.
And sometimes the principle chat first, negotiate later, for us is more important than the negotiation per se. You know, you have to meet the person and to chat a little bit about anything. For Brazilians, like soccer, topics like that, before starting the calcio in Italy, before starting the negotiation, for example. But thanks for your lecture, Giovanni. And now, please, Jair, my good friend, the stage is all yours.
Thank you, Daniel. I hope that you were listening to me fine. And well, I'm really very impressed with all the speeches that went on so far. And I've listened to them with a lot of attention. And I was thinking here all the time, because just let me take hold of the time here in order for me not to go too much beyond schedule. But the thing is that I would allow myself to look at all the speeches at the, possible measure from above, because all of you had somehow traced the specificities of your systems, mediation systems, and so on, from a very precise and accurate perspective, talking about the daily problems, the immediate concerns that really occupy a mediator and someone that looks at a certain system. And I was really impressed with the way in which you touched certain aspects, paradoxical aspects, without revealing them completely. I will try to be more specific here. There are two paradoxes in what you've said so far, all of you. First, a certain contradiction between the universal and the specific, the particular and the general, the broad and the narrow, right? So Henry told us that he would love to talk about the universal aspects of mediation, right? And this brought to my mind something that Michel de Montaigne, which was a thinker, a French thinker, of course, said once, which is that the most universal quality is diversity. The Italian mother, my dear friend Giovanni, says to his son, if you don't do what I want, I'll kill you. And the Jewish mother, as I can recall very well, says to his son, if you don't do what I want you to do, I'll kill myself. So they are very universal in their motherhood, but they are very different in the way that they put in practice the methods of motherhooding, if you allow me the verbalization of the noun. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that, yes, being universal, Tolstoy, Leo Tolstoy, or Lev Tolstoy, he was Jewish, said once, if you want to be universal, you first begin by picturing your own village, your little hamlet, your little neighborhood. Why? Because as we know by listening and reading Shakespeare, all the human tragedies are there in his work, even though he was talking about small hamlets in somewhere in the United Kingdom geographic area, right? Okay, so this is the first paradox, which in my opinion is a false. It's not a paradox at all. It can be reconciled depending on the way you look at it, right? If you look at it very close, you will not be able to even understand what you're seeing. But if you take some perspective, some distance out of the thing, then you will maybe recognize some features that are paradoxically universal and particular at the same time. Right? And second, if I was listening only, if I was to listen only to Henry, he would say, well, you know what, mediation is doing good in England, right? So everything is going fine. Every day I do have my cases, and well, it is about asking the right questions and everything. And so if I listen to Olga, I said, well, my God, okay, we need to do something about Greece because mediation is going very bad there. And it's a dire situation. If I listen to, okay, Daniel asked Giovanni, listen, Giovanni, is mediation part of Italian culture now? And he says, oh, by all means, not yet, right? Okay, so what we are talking here? So are we all crazy? Ursula told us a lot about how mediation is going in Portugal and everything seems to go well and so on and so forth. But just the same, we do have some limits and so on. So what's going on here? And I think that nobody's crazy. We're talking about the same thing, but we're talking about a different perspective. I think that we can reconcile, we can somehow put together both things, some apparently contradictory things, by applying a method, Olga, that your fellow citizen Aristotle, after having written the 13 volumes of his vast work, he wrote the last one that he called metaphysics, right? Meta meaning what comes after the physics, which is something else. It is not about the scientific method. It is not about experimentation. It is not about empirical thinking. It is about using the lesbos misura, the homo misura, if you prefer, Giovanni, in Latin, by which the rule to measure the contours of things, it is not like this, but it is like a string, a wire that adapts to the features of a specific object. So what I'm trying to say here is that if we use, and this is the most important thing in my opinion, if that we can say about mediation here, nonetheless, the many specificities or universalities or whatever you want to mention, it is that if you look at mediation from an either or point of view, from the scientific approach, if you measure the success or the presence or the importance or the relevance of mediation by analyzing how many cases are settled by mediation, we would be lost. Because, it's like saying that ethics do not exist because ethical principles are not majorly applied in Brazil today, if you look at politics, or in Italy, or we will say that health doesn't exist because most of the world is soaked into a global health crisis and a lot of people is dying. No, my friend, even if you're dying at this right moment, life is still pulsing inside of you. It is the eternal conflict between eros, and again, this is, if I'm not wrong, it's Greek, and thanatos or thanatos, right, which is death. And this is typical of living organisms. A certain way of approaching societal problems. You look at the society as if it were a living organism, right? Exactly as we do with environmental law. So if we we say that because the Amazon forest is being devastated in alarming proportions, environment does not exist anymore, we would be wrong. So what I'm trying to say here is that if we detach from the concrete result of mediation, the efficiency of this dispute resolution method, and if we focus on its ability of changing paradigms, of changing minds, you will see that mediation is more than a dispute resolution method. It's a process of thinking, of considering, of assessing, of understanding conflict. We are shifting in the last 20, 25, and listen, don't think that I'm a big fan of mediation in all kinds of settings and contexts. No, sometimes you need to use some adversarial methods, like litigation. Why not? Right? It doesn't matter if you like mediation or not. You need to concede to the fact that it came to stay and that it slipped into the legal system by the cracks of this legal system itself. And it came to stay. And it's changing the mind of many different, of all the dispute resolution practitioners. It doesn't matter, regardless if they are litigators or this or that. So what I'm trying to say here is that mediation, this debate about mediation, is putting in the agenda a very human uncertainty that beforehand was totally out of the legal concept, of the legal setting, of the legal continent. So yes, Henry, the questions are, and you've been studying linguistics, right? And you know how uncertain a single word like yes or no might be. I like very much to use a neologism that I created, which is yesn't. Because sometimes, my friend, a single yes, it's made of many previous no's. Think about marriage, for instance. Right? How many no's you say before finally engaging to this union with your partner or whatever, right? So what I'm trying to say is that mediation brought to the daily agenda what? Okay, yes, what are your concerns? And Olga, what I would say is the following. Henry taught us that it is not about money, okay? But it might be about maintaining a certain political and ideological position that doesn't favor mediation in Brazil, for instance. Why? Because justice has, largely not working here for just 500 years, right? A regular case in Brazil takes 20, 25, if so, to be solved. And in Italy, it's more or less the same. I've been living in Italy for 4 years in Rome and after near Lucca and Viterbo and some other places and so on and so forth. And I've seen, try to put an Italian in line or online on a queue, right, waiting for the bread at the bakery store, for instance. You will not get there because these guys, they just don't, they don't adapt to queues or to lines, but they know exactly what are their order in the servicing of that specific commodity that they are going after, right? So what I'm trying to say here is that mediation, it's important by its sole existence as an alternative. It adds to the system a big interrogation mark as to the possible outcomes of a conflict, because you know as well as I do that having a final award or having a final agreement doesn't mean that the thing has stopped, has finished, has been closed. The thing will continue. So because you need compliance when it comes to that specific thing. So conflict solving is a process, maybe a never-ending process. And mediation is all about that, okay? So it's like ethical principles that you don't need to apply to have them ruling over yourself. Sometimes you just apply them by contrast, by not complying. Now, sometimes it's a way of resisting or being ethical. So also, let me just see my time here. I just have 1 minute. So mediation, and again, mediation is not a pure thing. You have art meet, you have mid-art meet, you have nego mediation, you have mid-arbitration, you have whatever. I mean, there are many possibilities to use the method. It's a box, it's a toolbox, it's a toolkit, it's a skill set from where you can take off a lot of different techniques that will help you navigate to walk over thin ice. So it's a perspective, mediation, it's a process. It's a way of thinking and referring to conflict. Its influence and importance cannot be measured by the number of cases settled in a certain year, in a certain place. It works within the core of the system silently and sometimes unnoticingly. It's like culture. My dear friend Henry, Hong Kong came back to the British control in 1997, and it was taken in conditions that you've probably heard of in 1842 after a criminal war that was called the Opium War from the Chinese, right? Yes, okay. So how many people, when we talk about Hong Kong, remember that this whole history had gone, behind the scenes? Nobody. Why? Because culture, our most important convictions are, we are not aware of them, are unconscious. Right? Culture is something that comes to your mind when you forgot everything else. It just comes natural. And so what I would like to say is that mediation is a cultural phenomenon that is changing the way we treat and resolve conflict, and probably for good. It's like the jury in the common law system. It's disappearing. It will disappear. It's not possible in the United States, for instance, for you to put up juries for every single civil case, because it's especially during a pandemic. So what I'm trying to say here is that, well, I'm truly happy for witnessing the quality of this debate, right? Why? Because mediation is one of these subjects in which, by being simple, you are being very complex. It's like Da Vinci said that simplicity is the utmost expression of perfection, of complexity, right? That's exactly what happens with mediation. In Portugal, at the Juizados de Paz or whatever, when they are settling that simple case that will allow that person to move on, we are doing all these things. And when it comes to a complex art-made thing, we are applying, and when we are thinking the ways of restorative justice, for instance, we are treading the pathway of mediation. So mediation, it's larger than life concept, right? And that's why I'm so happy to witnessing this debate. So just some ideas, very loose ideas, some maybe probably crazy, but the medicine that I took this morning is already, bringing some effect, not totally, but blame it on the lab, right? This big pharma thing. They make You just get addicted to this medicine, and when you don't take them, you end up saying things like I'm doing right now. Okay, so again, bring Pfizer, bring Moderna, bring this labs for all the crazy things that I've been saying here now. So thank you for being so patient as to listen to me, and let's go on with the debate. Daniel.
Jair, thanks a lot for enlightening us. You went really deep in the discussion, and of course, you started talking about Aristotle, which is my favorite author, and it reminded me that Aristotle said back then that it was possible to make an universal constitution, and based on the natural law, and it said the fire that burns here burns elsewhere the same way, for example. And I was thinking about this in the mediation perspective, as Henry told us a little bit about the universals. And of course, everything ends in the conflict, starts and ends in the conflict. And conflicts are the same everywhere. It's about different positions. And that's the mediator's role everywhere. And just so, but thanks a lot. I was learning here with you, Jair, and of course, with all of you. The debate was really rich. And I have one question here in the YouTube channel, if I may read it to you. It's from Ronald Adomatis. I don't know if he's Greek, or his last name looks like a Greek name, but maybe he's Brazilian, I don't know. And he asks, I would like to know if methods such as family constellation and reflective transformative mediation apply, and to speak a little about the results of these methods in European culture. So would any of you would like to address this question?
Yeah, I'd like to say something about that. Reflective transformative mediation, I think, is unbelievably powerful way of resolving a dispute. I mean, when I did my training as a mediator, I am a lawyer, but actually I've almost lost my whole lawyer mindset, becoming a full-time mediator for the last 10 years. And my approach to mediation is absolutely pure facilitative. I actually don't believe in med-arb. I don't believe in any of the hyphenated words that Jair used in terms of conflict resolution. I think that facilitative mediation is actually the purest form. And if there's anything more pure, I would describe it as transformative. And reflective transformative mediation is certainly something that I have actually used, particularly when you have relationships in a professional environment or even in a family environment, where it is absolutely crucial for the greater good, or for in order to preserve relationships with other third parties, to use that form of approach, as opposed to anything that is any decision that is actually imposed on the parties. And I've got a recent case where two members of a very high profile board in the UK were clearly in dispute between themselves. And I was appointed as a mediator, and I've been involved in this particular issue for over 9 months on a rolling basis, and it's still continuing. And so the trick is to coach the parties to try and change their mindset effectively. I mean, it doesn't always happen in litigation-based mediation, but and I think this is one thing that I would actually challenge, is that mediation actually applying to litigation is about 0.1% of the possible disputes going on in the world that don't have any litigation at all, and there might not even be lawyers involved at all. I mean, by definition, people, you know, are in conflict on a second-by-second basis. And if you multiply that, I mean, I'm not a statistical person at all. You know, there are disputes going on all the time. There are tensions, there are this. They can end up in court. But I think the trick actually is to get to the issue as soon as possible, get the lawyers out of it completely, and bring in skilled mediators who have the ability to change lives. That's really what it's about. And my vision is that, you know, mediators, there should be millions and millions and millions of them across the world. There probably are actually anyway. It's just they're not called that. And I think that, yeah, reflective transformational mediation is a great way of describing what needs to happen when people are actually in conflict. Because also, it's the parties who need to be empowered to actually make their own decisions and to change their own lives. And that's why litigation is fatal, and actually going to court is fatal, because it's the judges who retain the power, not the parties.
Thank you very much, Henry. Ursula, you raise your hand, please.
Just a quick note also, because this is an intercultural thing, I guess, because I'm in different situations in Germany, evaluating master theses, for example, and in Portugal. And what I feel is there's a huge gap between German, Russian, Ukrainian, Great Britain, and so, and the Roman or Southern, I don't know exactly how it's in Greece, but I know from Spanish and Portuguese colleagues, the success is the dialogue, and it comes from the transformative philosophy, let's say. And in Germany and Great Britain, and I have lots of colleagues in Russia also, the success is the agreement. So it's much more facilitative and comes from Harvard. And the funny thing is, at least for me, the funny thing is, I live in Portugal and I go to Portuguese, Spanish, and so congresses, and I'm German, and I go sometimes to German, Austrian, and so on congresses, and the colleagues do not mix, because you either read English or you read Spanish and French or so. And if in the German and Austrian and so conferences, there's perhaps the keynote translated, but the rest is in English. And in the Portuguese, Spanish, perhaps the keynote is translated and the rest is in Spanish. And so there's a huge gap which is not even felt somehow between the facilitative focus, let's say, and the transformative focus.
Ursula, it's funny because here in Brazil, we read a lot of German authors in the law field, in philosophy and everything. And when a new book comes out, for example, I unfortunately I don't speak German, but we get the Spanish translation. The first translation is in Spanish, from Spain actually, and that helps us a lot because we usually can read in Spanish real easily. And Olga, any remarks? Jair, please, the stage is yours. Olga?
I think Jair is raising his hand, I think.
No, you're first. Jair will wait, of course.
Of course.
In Greece, we have facilitative mediation. We cannot have anything else because we really don't want to be to have this sense that we are using all these judges methods and skills. We are really very criticized by the judge and the other lawyers, and which are in fact the enemies of mediation here in Greece. So we really don't want to interfere with other methods and other styles. So I think that we don't use anything but facilitative mediation. So I don't have to say more about all these other styles that, of course, Henry and Ursula is very familiar of.
Thank you, Olga. Jair, any remarks? Giovanni?
I know that Giovanni, since he's Italian, he's crazy to talk. So I'll try to be very brief, my friend, in order to give you the opportunity of saying something. This is a problem. We are, too talkative, either Brazilians or Italians and so on. But what I'm trying to say is that this question that raised the discussion reminds me of a joke, and I'm sorry, it might be a little bit incorrect politically, but there's this joke about this man who was actually an old man that he lived in Nagasaki. And at that morning, tragical morning, when the bomb was dropped, criminal bomb was dropped over the city, he woke up and went out of bed. And at a certain point, he flushed the toilet, and then the bombs exploded. And he said, wow. What I'm trying to say here is the following. I don't know if you're familiar with a constellation, right? It's more than facilitative mediation. It's much more. It works with some unsuspected and not clearly explained in terms of hard science methods, right? What I'm trying to say is that it doesn't matter, Giovanni. I used to say that mediation, successful mediation in court or out of court, it's like a pre-baked lasagna, right? You buy it at the supermarket, you put it for 7 minutes into the microwaves, and then it gets ready. Of course, that this is a scene. This is, unacceptable in Italy. Lasagna has to be made by our mamas, right? But anyways, the drivers, the little thing or the huge thing that triggers the yes or the yesn't is not that important, in my opinion. Why? Because empowering the parties, Henry, is not anymore into the powers of the state. The judicial branch is not the only one authorized by the modern theory of state as the one instance that will deliver you, that will serve you with justice. Justice is not anymore something that the state dispenses to you. It's something that I take hold of through not war or violent methods, but through negotiating with the other party. That's the thing. So as the atomic bomb had destroyed completely what was under it, mediation and these new methods came to destroy, to erode, to deconstruct the very pillars of our modern state and putting justice back in the hands of the society. What we will do with that, I'm not really sure about, but you see that the BGB, Bürgerliches Gesetzbuch from Germany, was the model of the civil code and the civil law, the Roman Germanic system back at the end of the 19th century. And now we have in Brazil, for instance, courts in which sections of constellation are put up in order to find out what will be the result of a dispute resolution method. So this is unthinkable. We are talking about the Roman, but let's not forget, Giovanni, that in Rome itself, we did have two different systems. The Ius Civile, which was for the elite, that in Brazil goes well, thank you very much, and the Ius Gentium, that applies to the foreigners, and the remainder, not to say the rest of the people. So what I'm trying to say here in this 4 minutes is that that's it, Ursula. What will we do with the libraries of civil procedure that have been written by the many luminaries and stellar thinkers, German guys, and von Jering, and so on and so forth? Since you have constellation, maybe we have a fortune teller, maybe you have, you know, the butcher around the corner, which is the person that you rely upon, and he will say, well, listen, I think that you should do that. This is the trigger. That's what justice might be. So this is unprecedented. This is new, right? So we have to, take off our ties and our certificates and diplomas and degrees and everything, and maybe begin to study constellation. Why not? There are some crash courses, 5 days, 1 day intensive and everything. But I'm joking, of course, but what I'm trying to say is that you see how deep mediation has stuck, has penetrated into the core of the system. Okay, let's have this psychic session and ask von Jering what he thinks about constellation. And he will say, sorry, in his German accent, what? Constellation? But what does it mean? Okay, so that's what I'm trying, and I'm not against constellation. I'm just trying to put here a parallel. That's it, my friend. Go on.
Jair, you're like an actor who will be very successful, indeed.
Thank you very much. I'm thinking about changing profession because law is not doing very well. Not doing
He
well.
is a guitar player. He plays jazz, so it's kind of an acting.
I have just understood why Daniel said that he was his mentor. You are a magician, not the mentor.
That's great. That's
Jair
all.
Copperfield.
I'm not taking my medicine. But Giovanni, I don't know if you want to say something.
Please, Giovanni.
Well, you know, after listening here, I just try to be silent. Which kind of mediation here in Italy? We started with the facilitated mediation, but as far am I involved, I use the kind of mediation that I need according to different situations, because sometimes I prefer the facilitative, but sometimes, mainly if I know very well the matter and I am able to understand which would be the best solution for both, I started to be evaluative. But I really don't, I just have one rule. At the beginning of the mediation, I say these words. There are only 3 words to follow, 2 rules. Respect other people, listen to other people, and do not offend them. Therefore, they speak, but quietly, and just trying to understand. No time limits. Sometimes the solution is found in 15, 20, 30 minutes, sometimes in 2-3 days. Jair told that mediation is a very powerful tool. I totally agree with him. The problem is a human being that too many times don't understand how successful and how better would be just to mediate and to find a common solution. I told at the beginning, we just started 10 years ago. It will take time because you must understand, you must learn. And if you think that we have a beginning, as in a lot of other countries, we have just a beginning training lectures of only 50 hours, is too little. It needs much more time and it needs practice. Now, the problem we have is the lawyerization of mediation. Because there is the compulsory presence, the compulsory assistance of lawyers in mediation, too many times they not only assist, but they represent the parties. And at that time, too many times, the question is on civil procedural code and not on mediation. Powerful, helpful, very helpful, but it must understood, it must learned. And I always stress training is absolutely necessary. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Giovanni. So we arrived at the time that it's the final remark at times. So please, let's start with the ladies. Ursula, por favor, qualquer final, qualquer afirmação final, esse é o momento. Olga, please, Giovanni and Henry afterwards, and Jair, of course. Any final remarks? Thanks a lot again for your presence. I really learned a lot today. I'm sure everyone that's watching also did. I had some comments here in the YouTube channel, like genius webinar, some things, some compliments like that. So thanks a lot. I think this is the first one of many to come. CBMA has its doors open for all you guys, for all the MGG members, and of course, every ADR professional. I think our role here is to spread the ADR culture. And as my friend Jair says, of course, we have some ADR ecosystems, some difference in our ADR ecosystems, but we all have the same goal, which is to spread mediation and to be peacemakers and community organizers, not just lawyers. And thanks a lot for being here today. And please, ladies, final remarks.
I just start. Thank you very much. Super interesting. Obviously, all these insights. It's always good to have a local to tell about the things. I hope really we will keep in touch and in discussion. Right. Very, very interesting. Thanks a lot.
Muito obrigado. Olga, please.
Thank you very, very much for this opportunity to be here with you and learn a lot. I also have learned a lot. I will stick to what Zahir said about all this controversial among countries. And this, I think that he's right. In Greece, at least in Greece, mediation is really in experimental stadium. Although we have, as I said, over 10 years mediation law, we have over 2,000 mediators, accredited mediators. So my wish is that citizens of Greece learn a lot about mediation and appreciate all these things that might have learned from that institution, because it's not only dispute resolution, it's the way of thinking, the way of living, and the way of feeling. And it's the high time now that we are social distancing among each other, to feel each other and think more and listen more to each other. Thank you very much. It was a really great chance to be here.
Giovanni?
I was thinking we should be in the consequences of the pandemic on our social life and how mediation can help in managing these problems. We read that our own countries in different ways have the same situations, the same social economic behaviors. What can we do as mediators in just facing these problems? I'm sorry, but I really don't have an answer. We can work as much as we can, but I think that there will be a very long way to go in front of us.
Thank you, Giovanni. Grazie tanto. Harry,
Prego,
please.
grazie a te.
Well, I know Jair is going to follow me, so maybe he's got an answer to the pandemic. The only comment I would make about the pandemic is that I think it's actually brought local communities closer together with the possibility of then rebuilding into international. And I think my own personal experience is that I've got to know people locally much more than I ever used to. If you live in central London, and I live in the in Hampstead, which is only actually, so it only takes 45 minutes to walk, but I've never walked to central London in my whole life. Whereas this year I'm beginning to walk there, but I'm now having meetings, in local communities, and I think that's quite a good thing because you're building up, a local structure that then can potentially re-expand globally, whilst at the same time being able to keep in touch on these amazing Zoom platforms, etc. So there are some positives. I'd like to thank everybody for listening to what we've had to say. I'm absolutely humbled, and I'm allowed to say this. I'm humbled that English has been the universal language of this particular meeting, as it is in many, many cases. I really am truly amazed how well people who are not brought up in English in their mother tongue are able to express themselves. I think it's just incredible. I am a linguist myself, but I would never, ever try to mediate in any language other than my own language. So that's that. I'm just going to make a passing comment that we in our little island on the north of Europe were very fortunate in some ways that Napoleon never came and invaded us. We were very actually fortunate that Rome came, because that created an amazing system. But I think Napoleon can be blamed in some ways for the codification of the legal system across a large number of parts of Europe, which actually make life a lot more difficult. We have a much more fluid legal system based on precedent as opposed to statute, and I actually think that assists us in being able to move into a mediated environment more easily. And I think that's it really. The more mediations, the better. I'm averaging between 1 and 3 a week at the moment, and have been since the March lockdown last year. My God, it's March very shortly. We've been doing this for a year. And whilst face-to-face is, of course, the best, Zoom isn't a bad second. Thank you very much indeed to all of you.
Thanks, Henry. Of course, English was the language that all of us speak. I actually tried Greek, but we only spoke ancient Greek, and I think that was going to be a little bit difficult, for all of us. Where our modern Greek is rusty. It's a little bit rusty. Thank you, Henry.
That the next session will be in ancient Greek. I think you promised that.
Yeah, I think maybe in the next live, Olga. Sorry about that. Of course, I'm willing to learn Greek, but I think not in this lives. Thank you. Thanks, Henry, for all your remarks, and everyone. Once again, a great honor to have you here. It was an outstanding and amazing debate. And there's one more comment here. You were magnificent. So that's a good thing to say. Thank you, everyone. Jair, please wrap it up.
Well, yeah, my friend. I'll try to just say some things that haven't been said yet. But first, Daniel, only a person with your spirit and personality and character will be able to put together such a diverse and interesting group of people here. This is, I've been through many webinars, either at CBMA and other venues and everything, but the power of putting good people, good faith people together, and good professionals, competent thinkers and practitioners together, this has a power that might really operate miracles, I think. Right. So thank you. Thank you, Henry. You're very straightforward, very precise, very concise, as most of your fellow citizens. You don't waste words, right? And this is a very good quality that, we Latin guys, we don't have this. We like to, we have them in great stock, right? So we need to spend it a lot. it was great. You gave us a very precise account of how mediation is going, how your practice is being performed in your country and so on. Your experience is priceless, it's very valuable to us. It was great also the meticulous and very competent way in which Ursula, Giovanni, and Olga, not exactly in this order, brought to us a quite broad and comprehensive account of how mediation is doing in your countries. Right? It's very valuable because behind every sentence of what you said and conveyed to us, there is a lot of effort. There are many years of practice. There is a whole lot of thinking. So it seems, it's like Picasso said, he could paint a masterpiece in 10 seconds, but it took him his whole life to get there. So I would like to acknowledge this and express my deepest respect, Giovanni, Ursula, Olga, Henry, to your experience. Every single word that you said here is a silver line with your experience. With it brings and expresses a whole life dedicated to the cause of justice and peace. You are peacemakers, right? So what I would like to say about the pandemic is the following. Henry, try that 45 minutes walk to the London downtown area. It might change your life. There's 45 minutes, which is the pandemic, compared to your lifespan.
There's nobody there.
But compare, I mean,
out of London at the moment.
Okay, fine. So let's wait for spring, right? But do it, right? There's 45 minutes looking at different, because that's what the pandemic is all about. With all due respect to the tragic, to the heavy toll that the pandemic is costing the world in terms of human lives, which is regrettable, which is unfortunate, which is, we will never recover from that, people that are disappearing, everything. But it is giving to us at the same time an opportunity to look at things from a different perspective. And the sole fact, Henry, that so many people, so someone could say from a very practical point of view that, how many people will die? 1%, 2%, let's say 5% of the world population. Why would we care about that? And the fact that the whole world is we are taking care of each other. Everyone at his or her own pace, but we are trying to protect each other. And this is also unprecedented in human history. So,
Jair, sorry, Jair, do you think that we learned the lessons so that just after this pandemic will be better? We'll try to better understand other people and to try to understand all the situations.
I have no doubt about it. The sole fact of you, the 4 of you, the 5 of you being here without charging a single penny for your time, bringing up your ideas, giving for free your life experience, means that we can have faith in humankind, in mankind, right? Oh, humankind is better, but I'm no doubt. I have no doubt about it. I think that it's been worthwhile. We will go through this. This will also pass, right? We are very, very, wary and shattered and battered because of the situation and everything. But the thing is, we never trade a good question. You said that you don't know the answer. You know all the answers. You know all, Giovanni, all the important answers. You cannot answer what has no answer so far. Right? So we never trade a good question for an answer. Why? Because it closes the doors. An answer somehow pacifies, closes the door. And this pandemic must stay and remain for a while as an open door for us to see where we are heading, right? And that's probably all about what I would say. The only reason why we are understanding each other, Henry, is because we are culturally fluent. Our lives culturally fluent. We are fluent in culture. We are fluent in human values. We are fluent in humanity. We are fluent in dignity. And this is more important than any language. We need to talk peace. We need to talk comprehension. We need to talk conflict solving. And that's why we are understanding each other. It goes beyond. You've been studying linguistics, and you know that probably 30% of what we understand from a discourse comes from the words. We do have, I mean, body language, as Giovanni is very fluent in body language too, as Brazilians are, and so on and so forth. But we have this ability of understanding things that are not said. The hidden meanings, the implied meanings, even though we are online, Giovanni, I can see pretty well your eyes, and I can recognize in you the very human expressions that I experiment as a human being. So that's our best qualities, and that's why I'm happy, you know, because I feel like I fulfilled, Henry, my duty as a human being, as a person concerned with conflict solving and everything, by being with you. We need to do more of these things. And thanks, Daniel, for granting us with this opportunity. This is priceless, my friend. This is what life is for. This is what is worth about living. You know, how much we could have made of our 2 hours mediating, $1,000, $2,000, 2,000 euros. Okay, I would pay 10 times this much just for being with you again. Of course, that I'm using here a certain linguistic license, right? As a good lawyer, I will put a waiver on that. I will put waiver. But I mean, even if I had to pay, and if I had 10,000 euros, I would put on the table just to have the opportunity of being with you again. So, Daniel, please put us together again.
Thanks, Jay, for your kind words. I need to thank here MGG and Giovanni, Olga. I first met MGG, the Mediators Global Group. Through them, they kindly invited me. So, and this event, this webinar started there. And if it wasn't for Giovanni, for Olga, we wouldn't be here together today. And we have 40 members. We have 40 members there, Giovanni, or so. And we'll have more with other members, of course. And CBMA has its doors open for all of you. Thanks a lot for your time, for your lunch time. It's a precious moment. And if you ever need us in Brazil, now you have a port here, a dock here in Brazil. Just name it, just say it, and we are here for you.
After the pandemic.
Perfect. For sure. Thanks, everyone. So we are reaching here 2 hours. Thanks a lot. Have a nice day, a lovely lunch, and we'll talk soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, my friend. Bye.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.